Hello, this is my second developer diary for my game The Subjects, and it's been a little over a week since I posted my last video. Since then, I've managed to get the pillars in the level to move up and down. I've managed to get the light source purely for the player. I've also managed to retexture all of the walls. I need to do the ceiling still, which shouldn't take me too long. I just need to remap it and then put it back into Quixel, and then obviously re-export it into the Unreal Engine. What else have I done? I can't remember what else I've done. Let me check the spreadsheet. Actually, I'll show you the spreadsheet that I've set up. It's not a spreadsheet, it's like a Spreadsheet document that I've set up so that I can keep track of what's been done, what needs to be done, and what I'm going to do next week. And if something hasn't been done, then it's going to get moved into this little column here. But all the tasks that I set out for myself this week, I have actually managed to complete, which is really good. Like, I'm ahead of myself from where I thought I'd be last week, which is fantastic. So the work that I've completed this week is I modeled the exit portals, the walls, the ceiling, and yeah, I'm sure no, I didn't model anything else this week. I've also retextured the pillars, like I said, the chest, the exit portal, walls, and character. The reason that I retextured these assets is because I found the way I had Quixel set up to render out the textures, it wasn't producing the metallic maps that I needed. It wasn't reducing roughness maps either, which made the assets still look great in the engine, but they didn't look as good as I wanted them to. They always came out a little bit blurry and just not as well as I wanted them to. So with the spare time that I had, I literally just went back and just went, right, retexture them. The reason I retextured them as well is because I learnt a new technique with UV mapping, where I basically, with what I did with the walls, because this is the main thing that I did, was I got the walls, and in the UV space there were one big thing just for the whole wall. So I split that in half, and it actually maximizes the amount of space that's in the UVs to use for creating the textures, and it's made it look a lot more detailed and just realistic how I wanted it to. So I decided to do that for all the walls, because then they all look very clean and crisp. And it also fixed the bug that I had with the textures for the red rings on the wall, where they wouldn't completely texture for some reason. Well, on the smaller walls they did, and now I know why they did, because obviously there wasn't enough UV space for Quixel to go, alright, yeah, put that texture on that bit of the UV map. So yeah, that's fixed one problem which I didn't expect it to fix, which is great. Another thing that I did this week is I corrected the collision meshes for the walls and the ceiling as well, so you can now go inside the walls as you're supposed to be able to, which means that when I come to put the power-ups and stuff in the chests that are going to be down the hallways and stuff, it's going to make it a lot easier, because I won't have to go back and try and fix the collision meshes, which means I can just get on with the task at hand when I come around to doing it. The big thing that I did this week as well, which I'm really surprised that I managed to get done in just a couple of days, is I made the pillars rise up and down. I did have a little bit of help from a couple of people in my class, which is fine. Like, they helped me a lot because they know a lot more about the Unreal. But the main thing that I took away from being able to do this with the help of someone else is I now know more about the blueprint system and how it works, and what nodes you need to put into where to make something work. And it also, the way that they've helped me do it is they've put like a certain delay on certain parts of the pillars, so that one pillar, like one variation of the pillars is rising, and then as soon as that one's done, the other ones start rising, and then some other ones start falling. So you've constantly got a place to stand on the floor so that you know where you're going. At the moment it does happen a little bit quickly, which I'll show you shortly. It's not a huge deal, but it's something that does need to be fixed later on, because otherwise to me it seems very hectic. Like, everything's constantly moving and you always end up almost getting squished by the roof, and it's not the way I wanted it to be exactly, but for now it's perfect. Yeah, the other things that I've done this week is I gave the player the only light source in the game, so similar to how it is in Dark Souls, where you're going through the catacombs level, you have the player just being the light source, and it just illuminates a small area around you, and that's how I've managed to get it in my game now, which was relatively simple. One thing that I do want to do with that is I want to make it so that, because there's going to be a hallway that leads up to going into the labyrinth, I wanted that to be, the light to be off until you get into the labyrinth, and then it turns on where it goes completely black and the light just flicks on, and it just, that's something I'm going to do later on in the development cycle if I get a chance, because leaving it with just that light source illuminating the entire game, it's fine, but obviously it's a nice little touch to have it just flick on when you go into a certain area, which is, yeah. And the final thing that I managed to do this week is I began to work on a soundtrack for the game. So this is just a small piece of music that will be in the opening menu, so when you're waiting to press play to go on the game or exit the game or whatever, that'll be playing on like a loop, so it's got to be a loopable music, so there's no real like kind of defined start and end, but it kind of just, the way I'm going to do it is it fades in very slowly, builds up, and then slowly draws out again, which is what I want to do. And as you can see on the second column, this week's work is literally just working on Subject 17, so I've got to re-rig him, model the weapon for him, animate a walk cycle, run cycle, backstep, dodge, sidestep, attack animations for him, which does sound like a lot, but it's not really, because the walk cycle and the run cycle are basically the same thing, but one of them's sped up and the other one's a bit slower. I've also got to finish the menu music, which I'm about 20% of the way through, but it shouldn't take me too long to do. And I'm also going to start, once I've finished that piece of music, I'm going to start working on in-game sounds, such as like screeching from the enemies and clunking of the weapons as they walk, because they're going to drag the weapons along and kind of bang them against the wall and stuff like that. But yeah, for now I'm happy with the amount of work that I've managed to get done, and I'll just show you a little quick preview of the pillars moving up and down. As you can see, this scene is completely unlit at the moment, because if I turn it on to lit, pitch black. But yeah, it just makes it easy for me to edit stuff while I'm in the game, like in the editor, trying to work out where things are and what's going wrong. But yeah, if I press play, you can see got a light source. Obviously we've got no character mesh because I took him out to start working on him again, and the pillars obviously move up and down. As you can see on the middle bit there, you've got like a nice glowing metal, and the rest of it just glows really nicely, and I'm quite happy with the way they turned out. And in front of us we can see Subject 17. It's fully retextured now, so it's obviously got like the actual detailing on its armour, like the black armour, the golden rivets on him. Basically everything's laid out the way I originally intended it to, because when it was in the engine before, it was not showing up some of the materials which was defined as metal, so obviously without the metallic ones it just won't work. But as you can see from previously, I mentioned the pillars moving up and down, they seem to just move quite quickly up and down, so if I start going through the labyrinth now, you'll find that kind of everything's moving very quickly and changing, so because obviously I can't tell whether I'm going up and down here, and then yeah, that's going up and then this is going down, and it's very difficult to kind of gauge where you're supposed to be going, and it's not as much of a maze, it's more of a kind of trying to avoid getting crushed like that. Another thing that I need to fix as well is the collision mesh is pretty tightly bound to the pillars, so you kind of end up falling through them sometimes, because like, it literally goes up to the boundaries just a little bit over, but obviously there's a small gap between some of the pillars, so you kind of end up falling between the gap, and then obviously you end up inside the pillar, and that's not great. But for now, I'm really happy with the way the game's going. Thank you for watching, and I hope to see you next week.